chair today in Mark's absence. And I guess we'll start off by asking the council members if they'd take just a moment and quickly introduce themselves. And so Alejandro, why don't I start with you and we'll move this way.
Alejandro Bárcenas, the Public Works Director for the City of Nogales, and I'm an ex-DWR employee, so I've been around in the water for a long, long time.
Very good. Thank you, sir. John.
Joel Kramer, retired from Nogales Unified School District, active member of the school board out here in Santa Cruz Valley Unified School District.
Very good. I'm Gary Brasher. I'm from GUAC, developer realtor up there, and we will be acting as co-chair or chair today, I guess. So thank you all for your attendance. Thanks for coming, and for all of you coming down from Phoenix, especially. Ron, how about you?
Yeah, my name's Ronald Fish. I'm a local rancher here in the area. Always interested in what's going on in the water. I was trying to figure out how long I've been on this committee. That's 30 years or more. Still got the same problems.
Very good. Thank you very much, Ron. And then why don't I ask our Arizona Department of Water Resources staff if they'll each take a moment, introduce themselves. We're grateful that, what do we have, 6 or 7 of you today?
6 of us today.
6 of you that all drove down from Phoenix. So we're grateful for that. And I'll start with you, Melissa.
I'm Melissa Sykes. I'm the Water Management Assistance Coordinator.
Very good.
I'm Nick Mason. I'm the GUAC coordinator.
Good.
This will be my first GUAC meeting.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Very good. Well, welcome to Santa Cruz County. Glad to have you here.
My name is Tao Lee, and I'm a conveyance specialist.
I'm Jair Parham. I'm the conveyance coordinator.
I'm Siana Camacho, and I'm a conveyance specialist.
I'm Joy Revelovera, and I'm the program supervisor.
Very good. And then in the back?
I'm Bar. I'm a local developer.
Wonderful.
I'm Anita Connor, and I'm with the Calabasas.
Wonderful.
I'm Beth Pearl. I'm also the Calabasas Alliance.
Oh, great. Very good. Well, let the record reflect that our chair, Mark, is now in attendance. And so we'll hand back over chair responsibility
to you.
Well, we'll put it between us and then that way we can. Anyway, so we've gotten obviously as far as just introductions and everybody kind of the board members and also the public and those from the Department of Water Resources introducing themselves.
Okay, and did we get everybody just then?
Yeah, I think we did. I think we
Okay.
got everybody introduced and so now we're ready to move to the next.
Anybody?
Got everybody.
Got everybody. Okay, so, and it looks like we do, hey, Felix Año. And it looks like we've got we do have a quorum.
Yes, sir.
We do have some folks from AWR online.
Oh, great. Okay.
Do they need to introduce themselves? Yeah. I don't want these people listening in if we don't know who they are.
With the NSA.
So, sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chair, members of the council. This is Natalie Mast. I'm the active management area. I also have Colin Wogenstall with me. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, good morning. I'm Colin Wogenstall. I am the statewide planning manager at ADWR.
Is that everybody? On the line? I guess so. Okay.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair, members of the council. We also have Lainey Meeker on the webinar. I think, Nick, you may need to add her as a co-host so she'll be able to unmute herself. She is our statewide program supervisor.
Okay, wait, what program supervisor?
There we go. Thanks for adding that, Nick, so I could unmute. Sorry. Good morning, council members. My name is Lainey Meeker. I'm the program supervisor for the statewide planning section, so get to work really closely with Colin and Natalie.
Okay, great, thanks. So do we haven't gone over the meeting logistics?
Not yet, no, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the next item on there. So
Nicholas, I think.
take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Before we get started, let's go over some logistics. Members of the public, we ask that you please keep your phone muted during the meeting. If during the meeting you have a question, please feel free to type your question into the chat box and they will be read and addressed at the end of each agenda item. If you would like to speak to the council, the call to the public will be the time to do so. Please indicate in the chat that you would like to speak and we will unmute your phone. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted to ADWR's website and YouTube page once the recording is generated. Presenters, in the interest of allowing time for questions and ensuring that all presentations are heard, We ask that presenters keep their lectures to 15 minutes. I will be giving a 1-minute warning before your time concludes. Please ask for the next slide when you're presenting your agenda item. Finally, if you are having any technical difficulties, please contact our help desk. Their contact information can be found on the screen.
Okay. Thank you. You know what, those caramel things are rolling good. Wow, full of it there. Okay, just on the water management assistant program updates. Can we start with Melissa on there?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, council members and members. I will be going over the Water Management Assistance Program fund balance and the status of the DCP groundwater conservation grants. Following up on from our last meeting regarding the withdrawal fee rates for 2024, the director approved the council's recommendation of $3. Here's the update for you all. Moving on to the WMAP fund updates, the current balance is $406,301. Of that, $11,938 is committed, leaving a balance of $394,363. We're expected to collect about $29,000 next year. There are currently no projects outside of the Borderland Restoration Network project being funded with WMAP funds. You go to the next slide, please. As for the groundwater conservation grants, the City of Nogales Water Conservation Education and Technology Project has completed their project and their final 3 deliverables are still under review. They are expected to present at the next GUAC meeting to go over their findings. Slide, please. The Borderlands Restoration Network Project, groundwater recharge on working lands by local youth to enhance ecosystem services is still in progress as well. It's a pretty short update, but before we move on, are there any questions regarding the WMAP funds or the water conservation projects?
No, and let me just say, because we usually do have a small group here, thank God we're not like Maricopa County or Phoenix AMA. So rather than do a call for the public, a lot of times is if anybody out there's got any questions about this, rather than wait till the end and try to go back, please go ahead. The staff will try to get them answered for you. Okay, thanks, Melissa.
Yeah, I have a question. The groundwater recharging by local youth. Who's overseeing that? Who's doing that? I'm trying to push one of our teachers and I don't know if he was doing it or not.
The person running that project is right now Aspen Thies. And we have Rodrigo Sierra Corona as the executive director of the Borderland Restoration Network.
And that would be along the Santa Cruz?
Yes. It's on the T4 Ranch area. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you just for everybody tell us where the T4 is located?
I don't know exactly where it's located.
Ron,
on the top of my head.
It's off Patagonia Highway there, north of.
Yeah.
Going back after you pass the airport?
Yeah, in fact,
Probably about a mile out past the airport.
Oh,
just past the turn off.
Both sides of the highway, but I think they're doing the work on the west side of the highway.
okay. And is that, is it actually, just going back to Joel's question, is it done on the Santa Cruz or is it done on a tributary or out?
Santa Cruz.
It's done on the Santa Cruz there where.
I think it goes up to like Patagonia Lake, don't it? The area.
Yeah.
And they're south, they're south.
Yeah, I think it's part of Sonoita Creek.
It's on that drainage up.
Yeah, that drainage.
That comes down.
Yeah, it doesn't go directly to the Santa Cruz, goes through the Sonoita Creek and go down to the Santa Cruz, but way down.
Okay.
Has anybody been out and visualize they see what's happening?
Not at this point, no. But that's part of our program that we intend to improve upon in the future.
But that was about a year ago or over a year ago, we ran into the funding.
It was in 2020. So it's been a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, right. Okay, I just wanted to do that because I was, again, trying to promote our teacher that's right here by the farm to get something going along Santa Cruz, but.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any more?
I think
Yeah.
Yes.
so we have a large balance now
Yes.
on the account here from the program. My concern is what happened in the past. The legislature come and took that money out of the department. Have you talked about that, or have you had any plans?
At our last couple of GUAC meetings, we mentioned how we would like, if there's a way, if any of you have any contacts, to try to get people to reach out. I believe we did that maybe 2 meetings ago at our last in-person meeting. We didn't get any calls about any projects though, unfortunately. But that funding is still available to everyone. I don't foresee it being taken by the legislature. It's just sitting there. Like, it's unutilized funds, that's all.
Yeah, one thing that the department used to do is work with the USGS to fund some of the gauges to collect data. And I think they suspended some of those gauges that were supporting with this money. So you still have that or not?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not sure if Natalie, if you've heard of that project, but I recall that being mentioned before.
Yeah, we used to have the gauge right at the border, in Loquillo, and we used to have the gauge on the Santa Cruz River somewhere close to our.
There's the, not Continental, there's the Bridge to Nowhere gauge. That bridge.
Yeah, that's one, and the gauge just crossing the border right there in your land, or it's close to your.
Pardon?
Gauge.
Chair, members of the council, apologies for interrupting. I was just going to say that this is Natalie Mast, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to say ADWR does have some collaboration with USGS to jointly fund some gauges. I don't know offhand the exact locations or number of those in the Santa Cruz AMA, but that's something that we could look into and make sure we're providing information to you all.
And what I'm thinking from a, does anybody from DWR know what the status is? I'm just thinking of Alejandro's question about how this money could be utilized for something. We used to, way back when, Mark Perez used to be down here monitoring a number of wells, groundwater wells. And it gave us a good idea of kind of the fluctuations we were dealing with and the, I want to say the standard deviations that we had on our water supply. Is DWR doing any periodic monitoring on that anymore? Go ahead.
Sure. So,
Sorry.
oh, I apologize.
You're doing that quarterly, aren't you? You're doing that quarterly because every once in a while, I'm not sure who the person is that's out measuring, but every once in a while we'll run into somebody measuring those specific wells.
So ADWR does do periodic well sweeps on wells across the state. Again, I don't know offhand the precise schedule for that or when folks would be down in Santa Cruz next. But we do monitor various wells statewide, both on an ongoing basis for ones that have some kind of telemetry with them, and on a more periodic basis where we have to go out and measure them manually. We do have information on our website about that, but we can also make sure to provide additional information to the council about the locations and frequency of those.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that the department does a sweep that they call through the state once a year, at least once a year, I believe. But we used to have a program in Santa Cruz, like Ron mentioned, that was a quarterly sweep of some specific wells that the department selected to monitor because of the conditions of the AMA that fluctuate so much, not like the big AMAs that they have really stable basins that the water tables don't fluctuate that much. But here, the fluctuations are so big that we need data more frequently. And I thought that when the big budget crisis happens, they cut that in the department. And I would love to see that put back in place to really see what's going on with our water conditions here, because, we had like this past year, we didn't have any rains. And we're hoping that we're still in good shape, but we don't know.
Okay, and if I remember right, when they're doing that, there seemed to be a handful, about a half a dozen wells up and that they would look at, starting from where you guys are in Nogales and going almost all the way to the AMA
Yes.
boundary. And I agree, because for us here, our management doesn't go over, our management is seasonal, here, and particularly for you guys, and smaller providers like you, but, okay.
I'd like to just interrupt here with Alejandro, and be interested to see what's happening to them wells down below the golf course, since they put water in that, whether that's made any difference in the water table or not. They pulled a tremendous amount of water out of that for when they was in business. And they've been out about a year now, over a year now, a year and a half.
Yeah, that's really why I think we need to have those wells monitored more frequently, because we don't know the impact. We have 3 golf courses that are gone now.
Yeah.
We need to know what's going on with the water. If the water is just running out of the AMA, or what's going on. And the drought situation, the flows coming from across the border, this is another issue that we don't know, because they're impacted the same way that we are with the drought, and maybe they're pumping more water. But also I know that they're bringing water from another basin in Mexico that may be coming this way. I don't know. So those things, I see the potential to use this kind of money to fund the department monitoring the Santa Cruz AMA in a better way than the once a year.
Okay, so I'll throw this question out to any of the departments, or maybe you, Melissa, not that you're not with the department. So yeah, I agree, because, for our management, that's going to be really important. So I guess what I'd like for the department is, if they can dig out and dust off that whole plan and maybe present that to the GUAC as, the same kind of plan that when Mark was doing it, is, for that kind of data collection, and, maybe some projections of how much that would cost. I guess and I think it'd probably be better if EWR did that. I guess the other option, the GUAC here presents kind of our wish list of what we'd like to see as far as monitoring. But that might just be an extra step that's, not going to function. So, yeah, I'd ask if they could do that and come up with what would be a cost of that. And I think at least quarterly, because we are seasonally driven here.
Mark, there's something I'd like to interject that fit into this area maybe, and I don't see other areas, but Alejandro's very aware of it, and we've talked about it before, that the Santa Cruz River itself at the border is not running. If you get on down about a 3/4 to a mile, there's all kinds of water running, and it's from that sewage plant.
Also,
the line. And I don't know, I don't think it's being treated, because we quit drinking it a long time ago. It comes down past our farm and on into Keno Springs, but it's really a horrible smell to it. Do you know if there's any treatment going on to it, Alejandro?
What I know is that NatBank is funding several projects in Mexico to resolve that problem, to improve the treatment plants that they have there. But also, I'm very concerned that the development really jump into that side of in the Santa Cruz River. And they recently approved, about 6 months ago, approved development of about 12,000 homes in the basin of the Santa Cruz River. And I say, well, the water is an issue. The wastewater is another issue because it's going to come down to our drinking water, the drinking water that we all use here, because it's going to come through the river. So I've been pushing the NAT Bank, the people that I know, to talk to everybody here to see what impact we see that we're going to have and what steps could be taken to prevent damage. Like Ron is saying, is the smell, the contamination, and all those things are a problem. That right now the wells from the city are 4 miles downstream. We haven't seen any impact, but eventually we're going to see an impact. So we better start checking into that. That's why I think it's getting the data to be able to support and say, hey, this is what's going on here. ADQ, DWR, what are we going to do about it? Because we're just talking and we don't have the information. So we need to provide some support for those claims. So
I don't know whether that would come under DWR's deal of monitoring, but that's the wells within that area need to be monitored, not only for water depth, but for the
Yeah, that's right. And
quality of it.
yeah, and
It was very good quality prior to that sewage plant coming into existence, but not that way anymore.
yeah, the city of Nogales has increased the monitoring for the quality of our wells in Kino Springs and the Santa Cruz River and on the breach area. But because we're concerned about that and we're checking to make sure that we don't get any impact. So far, we haven't seen nothing, and we're keeping our fingers crossed that we are not going to see that really soon. But
well, I think, yeah, like I said, there's two issues. One is the effluent that's coming, and that's mostly down also, right? Down also Washer.
well, there are two
Where that
two wastewater treatment plants right now. They are interconnected now. They send one from the effluent from one pipe that connects to the second one, and that discharge to the also wash.
Okay.
So there are two, but they are planning to have 2 more treatment plants for the 12,000 lots that they approved. So if they build small plants, I think it's going to be really difficult to regulate that because, you can fail one of the plants and get the contamination going, and the rest could be working fine, but the contamination is still coming.
Right.
My opinion, and for whatever is worth for, I think would be better to have a centralized system and well managed and well monitored, so we know exactly what's coming in, instead of having many plans that are really hard to regulate and really hard to monitor. I've been talking to the bank. I have a really close relation with NAT Bank because they have been funding all the projects that the city had. And they're talking about doing something, but the difficulty between 2 federal governments working together is really hard to push. So I don't know, but I think we should at least have information.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, there's going to be a couple. Obviously, the effluent, if they're doing that's going to be a problem. But also, I'm assuming for the water supply, they're going to be pulling out of Mascareñas.
I don't think they are going to be pulling a lot more water from the river because the river is kind of maxed out.
Okay, so those galleries there, they're probably just not going to.
I think what they are doing is they are drilling wells up in the hills and going to groundwater for every subdivision. So I don't know what impact that's going to have in the long term.
Yeah.
Well, you can tell the difference of what's happening. You go down in the Rio Rico area and you've got lots of water, I guess lots of water in the river yet. And the cottonwoods are very prolific, very good. Well, we're on the south, it used to be before the sewage plants came into action, the trees were very poor, like a powder. But now you go down there and they're beautiful foliage and all the cottonwoods in it. So you know they're sucking up a bunch of water.
To Mark's point about perhaps you coming back with a proposal to start the testing again. And does that sound right? Is that something you guys could do, is to dust that off and then come back and say, this is what it's going to take to start getting the data that.
My suggestion would be to talk to the director or somebody and say, can we reestablish this monitoring program in Santa Cruz AMA using some of the funding? And I don't know, right now, technology, I think, could save a lot of money because I think you got 2 transducers installed in one in the Santa Cruz River right by the bridge going up on the village on Kim Springs. And the other one is in the Potrero Creek. Installing more transducers in the wells, you don't have to come. You just get the information and get the satellite information and cell information now.
But to get, yes, something that we would want to look at is how many wells would it take and up and down, because we do have, hydrologically, we got the micro basin area, which, where the city's got a bunch of its wells. Then we get down to that dry stretch where Ron's wells were, I guess they're Dean's now, but down there. And then we get below Rio Rico where we got all kinds of water for a while, and it doesn't run like it used to, up to the county line or anything anymore. So we got a couple of different reaches that we need to take a look at. Yeah. And I mean, for me, I think that's a really good use of this funding, for the data we're going to need for management. And then I don't know whether department should talk to department, or because as far as water quality, that's going to be DEQ. Yeah, it's going to look at that. So,
I think this is going to have an effect in the future. That Mexican sewage plant feeding into the river, because it's going someplace. It's not being pumped out. So I don't know whether the aquifer's building up from that or not, but there's a tremendous amount of water going down through there. It's
yeah, and if we could get that from NADBank as to what's their discharge, I mean, just volume of their discharge. I mean, good coffee water needs body. So we might be getting it down there. So
Look at the spoon stands up.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, they have information that you go to the webpage that they have all the projects that they are going to be funding or they are planning to fund in Mexico. And there's a lot of what's going on with the international setting. So I don't remember all of them, but
could somebody from NetBank come and talk about, I mean, obviously not all of them, but could you get somebody?
I can provide you guys the information so you can invite them for the next meeting. I have really good contact with them. The director of IBWC used to work for NetBank, and she knows everybody there, and she can really make a good presentation.
Okay, yeah,
I can provide contact names, and you can see that.
If we can get that on the agenda, and maybe with better luck than I'm having with South 32, getting them down here. A lot of that's my fault because I didn't follow up as much as I should have with those guys, but.
Mr. Larkin.
Yes.
We can certainly look into all of this and have a discussion with the director about what would be appropriate maybe for future meetings, or what we might be able to consider in terms of that WMAP funding.
Okay, that'd be great. We'll get going. Melissa, do you have any more, like, as far as well, we only had the one project going in here, so do you have any more, or should we move
No,
to Colin?
I'm finished with my updates.
Okay, thank you very much. And I know that's just kind of the way that we do stuff here, is we get sidetracked on a lot of stuff. So so the supply and demand assessment results, Colin, are you still there?
Hi, yes, good morning, Chair Larkin and members of the council. I introduced myself earlier, but I'll do it again. I'm Colin Wogenstall. I'm the statewide planning manager at ADWR. Today, I'll speak to you about the supply and demand assessment programs, which examines the groundwater basins in the state. And I will briefly talk about our methods for that project and the results from the inaugural round of basin reports, which we just recently completed at the end of 2023. So next slide, please. In accordance with new legislation passed about 2 years ago, ADWR is required to conduct a water supply and demand assessment of each of the 51 groundwater basins in the state at least once every 5 years. At least 6 assessments must be issued by December 1st of each year. The purpose of these studies is not regulatory, but it is meant to improve our understanding of current and future water conditions in a basin and to assist in future planning throughout the state. This information may also inform the distribution of water conservation grant funds. So these reports are structured as water budgets. They focus on total inflows and outflows at the basin scale. And I'd like to really emphasize this point here, but these are not groundwater models like those issued by the hydrology division of ADWR. They don't have that fine granular detail. So to complete these reports, we first try to obtain local or specific data and models. However, in cases where water data is unavailable, we apply literature values or other types of averages and assumptions that we've developed to create the estimates of available supplies and demands. And during this research, we are focused on answering 3 primary questions about each of the basins that we're examining. And those questions are, what is the volume of water demand each year? What is the volume of each water supply annually? And is there enough available supply to balance demand? Next slide, please, Nick. So briefly, before we go any farther, I'd just like to talk about the groundwater basins that we examined for the 2023 report cycle. We examined the Harquahala INA, McMullen Valley Basin, Butler Valley Basin, and Tiger Wash. Those are sort of in the west central region of the state. And in the southeast region, we examined the Douglas AMA, the Wilcox Basin, and the San Bernardino Basin. Next slide, please, Nick. So this slide shows a graphic representation of the process that we use to create the water budget for each basin. The supply and demand sectors and subsectors that we examine in each basin are listed here, so you can see what we look at, what we examine, and how we classify those. And while supplies and demands vary from basin to basin, the overall process remains the same. We review all the supplies and the demands over a set period of time, and then combine them to see if the basin is balanced. So we established a baseline for the report, and that runs from 1990 to 2022. Next slide, please. So as I stated earlier, these are not the hydrology reports that the division puts out. And they're different for a few different reasons, but one of the most interesting, unique qualities of these reports compared to other reports in the past is that we've focused on the average well depth in a basin instead of the depth to bedrock. This approach allows us to estimate at what point in time the amount of available water is calculated to fall below the average depth of a well in the basin. When this occurs, it means that a well has gone dry. So we thought that this novel approach was worthwhile as it shows the impact of declining water levels on property owners, residents, or industries located in the basin. And that's what's represented on this, the average well depth. All right, Nick, next slide, please. So the next step in this process, after quantifying the inflows and outflows of the basin across the baseline period, is that we then assess future impacts on water supplies using 5 projection scenarios. The projection scenarios extend from 2023 to 2075. And by applying these scenarios, we aim to understand potential variations in the status of water supplies. This extended time frame allows us to forecast future conditions and understand how different demand variables might impact the status of the basin's water resources. The scenarios are the status quo, which maintains baseline conditions without any significant changes. This one's really crucial for a reference point for us to understand the other potential impacts and what happens if current trends persist. The growth scenario explores increased water use in specific sectors. It considers population growth, urbanization, and industrial expansion. This one's important to understand potential increases in water use. Conservation looks at reductions in water use for specific sectors. And technology considers the impact of new technologies on water use. We kind of delve into innovations that could enhance water use efficiency, reduce waste, or otherwise impact or optimize water use in a basin. And then finally, we have the climate scenario, which is assessing how changing temperatures might affect water consumption and availability. Okay, Nick, next slide. So at this point, we'll kind of go into the results from 2023. Nick, next slide, please. Oh, Nick, can you hear me? Can you go to the next slide? Thank you, Nick. Okay. So as depicted in this graph of the approximate groundwater storage volumes, we've observed a decline in groundwater storage across the 7 basins from the 2023 assessments. Notably, the most significant decline has been observed in the Wilcox Basin over that baseline period. Like I said earlier, our analysis extends beyond those historical trends. And when we applied those scenarios to our baseline data, we found that several basins would not have sufficient supply to meet demand in the coming years. Notably, the Butler, Douglas, AMA, the Harquahala INA, the McMullen Valley, and Wilcox Basins are anticipated to face challenges. Next slide, please, Nick. And on this slide, this shows the breakdown of water supplies and demands by sector. So examining the water balance visually helps us identify an emerging trend, which is that more water is leaving than is replenishing these basins. Particularly noteworthy on this slide is that in the basins that we analyzed in 2023, the water demands of agriculture accounted for between 87% and 99% of the total overall demand. Next slide, please. So moving on to the 2024 round of reports, we have a total of 51 groundwater basins in the state that must be analyzed. After completing our initial round of reports, that leaves us with 44 basins yet to be assessed by the end of 2027. Over the next 4 years, we are committed to evaluating an average of 11 basins annually from 2024 to 2027, But to maintain a steady pace, we plan to increase the number of basins we study in 2024 to 14 basins. This will allow us to meet our required goal and provide a thorough analysis of all the basins. Please note that the Santa Cruz AMA has been selected for study in the 2024 project cycle. What that means is that we'll be reaching out to regional stakeholders in the coming weeks. This outreach serves two purposes for the supply and demand assessments. Number one, it's to inform the public that the study is in progress. And two, we ask for voluntary contributions of water use data from across all of the demand sectors that we have identified. That type of data is beneficial to this project, and it helps us ensure that our assessments are as accurate as possible. Next slide, please. All of the information related to this project can be found here on the supply and demand website. The URL is at the bottom of this slide. This page contains the reports themselves. It also contains a detailed description of our analysis methods in our methods appendix. And also it contains the interactive dashboard where you can examine the results of the baseline data collection and the scenario projections. Next slide, please, Nick. So with that, I'd just like to thank you for your time. And if time permits, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. My contact information, as well as Natalie's, is here on this slide. And please reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns, and I'd love to talk to you. Thank you. They're muted.
Apologies, Mr. Chair, members of the council. Nick, if you could unmute the room. We were getting a little bit of feedback from the room and had to mute that to prevent that feedback so you guys could hear us better. Perfect, thank you.
I'll use an AED on you.
Yeah. Is that okay? Natalie, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Go ahead. The question is, you mentioned Santa Cruz County, I think, was scheduled for 2024. Is that right? Did I understand that correctly?
That is correct, yes.
And then do you anticipate that process being annual? In other words, it's going to take the entire year to process that, or part of the year, and then the report will come out in the third quarter? Or what's kind of your timing for us getting, real-time data from your effort?
Yes, so we publish, because we have 14 basins, we try to publish them all at the same time, and that will be on or around December 1st. The project is on a rolling 5-year timeline, so each basin will be assessed every 5 years. So in 2029, we would be coming back to do Santa Cruz again. So every 5 years is the timing. As far as the general timing of the project, it takes about 6 to 7 months to collect the data, analyze it, and apply our projection scenarios. And then we write the final report and create the dashboard in the second half of the year. So the data will be provided at the end of the fourth quarter, so beginning of December.
Very good. Thank you.
Nick is paying attention to you now, if you. Okay. Any more questions for Colin? Okay. Feel free to contact him any time of the day or night. He gave you there. Okay. Lainey, on drought status, you're up.
Yes, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. So good morning again. I'm Lainey Meeker, the program supervisor for the statewide planning section. So I help to oversee the drought, conservation, rural partnerships, and community water systems programs at the department. Today I'll be providing this presentation on behalf of our drought coordinator, Maggie Martin. And in the presentation, I'll provide an overview of the drought program, the working drought committees, as well as a statewide short and long-term drought status update. So next slide, Nick. So to start, I just wanted to provide some background on the drought program. ADWR's drought program was shaped by recommendations set forth by the 2003 Arizona Governor's Drought Task Force. And the task force developed the 2004 Drought Preparedness Plan Operation Drought Plan, which can be found online. This plan emphasizes a drought monitoring system to provide early warning of future drought conditions and proactive mitigation strategies to help reduce the impacts of drought. A key to the implementation of the drought preparedness plan was the creation of 3 structural committees. So the first is the Drought Interagency Coordinating Group, or ICG, we call it for short. This group serves as an advisory group for the state governor on the drought emergency declaration of the state, and the group meets biannually. Second is the local drought impact groups, or LDIGs. These are county level groups that coordinate drought public awareness, provide impact assessment information to local and state leaders, and implement and initiate local mitigation and response options. Currently, the only active group in the state is the PEMA LDIG, and they do meet bi-monthly. Lastly is the Drought Monitoring Technical Committee, or MTC, and they're responsible for gathering data about Arizona drought, climate, and weather, producing drought status reports, and disseminating that information to land managers, policymakers, and the public. ADWR helps to facilitate these 3 committees, and then we help coordinate between the members of the committees and the public stakeholders. So Nick, if you can go to the next slide. I'll now provide a little bit of information on the committees individually and summaries of their most recent meetings. So the Drought ICG was a 1999 drought emergency declared by Governor Jane D. Hall, and this activated the State of Arizona Emergency Response and Recovery Plan, which promoted aid in drought-stricken areas of the state. In 2009, the declaration was reaffirmed through executive order, and this further promoted water conservation in all sectors of the state, requested assistance for those impacted, and ordered state agencies to implement water use reduction plans. As I mentioned on the last slide, the ICG is the advisory body to the governor on Arizona drought issues, and it's comprised of state, federal, and non-governmental organizations. So twice a year, again, that group meets to evaluate drought conditions, and then they actually provide recommendations to the governor on drought status. Most recently, the ICG met on November 7th of 2023, and they did unanimously recommend that drought declarations remain in place in the state. The meeting agenda summary and presentations from the last ICG meeting are available on ADWR's website if anyone was curious and wanted to go back and watch those. The next meeting date is yet to be determined, but it will be in May of this year. Next slide, please. So the Drought MTC Committee is co-chaired by Erin Ann Saffel, who is the state climatologist in Arizona, and Mark O'Malley, who's the lead forecaster for the National Weather Service of Phoenix. The Drought MTC meeting is actually taking place right now from 10 a.m. to noon, so overlapped specifically with this meeting, which is why Miss Maggie could not make it today, and I'm presenting on her behalf. Both short-term and long-term drought conditions are discussed at this meeting, as well as agency updates from Salt River Project, or SRP, ADWR, and then there's a guest presentation today from Ian Murray on drought-related impacts to key species on Pima County conservation lands. That recording of the meeting will be available online as well if anyone would like to go back and watch that from today. The next meeting the date has not been determined yet, but it will take place sometime in early April. Next slide, please. So the LDIGs, or local drought impact groups, help to coordinate drought public awareness, provide impact assessment information to local and state leaders, and implement and initiate local mitigation and response options. They are typically at the county level, and they're coordinated locally. And again, the only active one currently is the PEMA LDIG. Next slide, please. So on the screen, you can see the monthly short-term drought status maps for the past 5 months. This slide does not include December's map, which is going to be released in the next few days. That will be available online as well. So today we'll just be covering from July through November. As you can see on the screen, July ended as the hottest July on record at most locations in the state, and the second driest July on record, which started building the moderate short-term drought in central and southeastern counties. Thunderstorm activity was slow to move into the state, but eventually rainfall arrived to many communities by the end of July. However, for most counties, rainfall totals lagged below normal. 2 locations, Kingman and Tacna, received above average precipitation, while Tucson approached 90% of average July precipitation. Precipitation from tropical storms started in August in western and northern counties. However, severe short-term drought had already advanced in central and southeastern counties due to the previous 6 to 7 extremely hot weeks. After a full year of no extreme drought started advancing through Arizona in September. Moderate and severe drought advanced in 45% of the state, with 41% of the state having abnormally dry conditions and 8% of the state having no drought in September. Statewide temperatures were much above average in October, and at the end of October, moderate or severe short-term drought had expanded into every county, or 50% of the state, although Yuma, La Paz, and Coconino counties still held a good portion of abnormally dry conditions or no measures of short-term drought. Extreme short-term drought was recorded in 6% of the state and continued in Santa Cruz County, southern Pima, eastern Cochise, southern Graham, and Greenlee counties, with the majority of the Phoenix metropolitan area in Maricopa County and portions of Gila County. On the next slide, I will get into the November drought status update specifically as our most recent for this presentation. Next slide, please. So as you can see from this map, temperatures were above average across much of the state in November, with central and southern counties much above average. While November is climatologically one of the drier months of the year, southeastern and northwestern counties still fell below average amounts of precipitation. Snow started falling in higher elevations, helping snow water equivalent levels in the Verde, Salt, and Little Colorado basins to reach median levels by the end of November. Severe or D2 short-term drought advanced in November along south central Navajo County and the eastern border of Apache County, increasing statewide levels to 29%. Moderate D1 short-term drought slightly decreased to 22% of the state, largely positioned in central, southern, and eastern counties. Extreme D3 short-term drought remained at 6% of the state in central and southeastern counties. Abnormally dry conditions decreased by 1% in northern Apache County, leaving areas with abnormally dry conditions or no drought to 43% of the state. Looking forward, strong El Nino conditions are present in the tropical Pacific and will persist through spring 2024. Despite this strong El Nino episode, there is almost no tilt in odds towards a wetter or drier and warmer or cooler than normal winter. So essentially, it's kind of a toss-up. We're going to see how the El Nino conditions present. If you can go to the next slide, please. So for quarterly long-term drought status, you can see the maps beginning in 2022, October, December, and then ending at the end of our water year, July, September of 2023. A very wet monsoon season in 2022, followed by a very wet winter into March 2023, brought improvement to Arizona's long-term drought. Long-term drought did transition from largely extreme long-term drought, which is bright red, to the more moderate drought and abnormally dry conditions through the spring. However, extreme drought did begin advancing throughout September, following our very hot and dry summer. Focusing on the top right map, which is July to September 2023, the next long-term drought status map is going to include October through December. And like I mentioned earlier, that will be released in the next few days and available online. So as I've mentioned, a record-breaking July and a late starting monsoon season expanded Arizona's long-term drought. Exceptional drought persisted in La Paz County, but also started developing in Maricopa and Santa Cruz counties. Extreme drought advanced in Maricopa and parts of Yuma, La Paz, and Coconino counties. Severe drought also expanded in southern Mojave, La Paz, Yuma, and Maricopa. Pima and Pinal counties and areas along the Mongolian Rim to the White Mountains developed moderate drought, while portions of northern Mojave, northern Coconino, northern Navajo and Apache, and Cochise contain smaller amounts of abnormally dry conditions or areas with long-term drought. So something important that I wanted to mention is that these drought maps are created using standard precipitation and evapotranspiration index data, or SPEI. That's for the past 24, 36, 48, and 60 months, and thus takes into account long-term data that includes different wet and dry periods in Arizona, as well as the long-term cumulative impacts. This is why, while sometimes we have a good-looking short-term U.S. drought monitor map, we are still often in the long-term drought, and it's important to implement these proactive management measures of our drought. Next slide, please. So the 2023 Arizona Drought Preparedness Annual Report is produced in partnership with different drought groups and Arizona residents, and it's produced for the governor's office, covering the previous water year, which goes from October 1st through September 30th. These reports include a summary of Arizona's drought status for the past water year and outlooks for the future water year. It includes drought and emergency designation information, highlights drought conditions and preparedness activities, including water supply, drought planning for community water systems, outreach, education, participation in regional and national efforts, and drought assistance. You can find the 2023 Arizona Drought Preparedness Report on the ADWR's website, and I can drop the link for all of this in the chat at the end of the presentation. Next slide. So in conclusion, I wanted to highlight just a few opportunities to get involved with the drought program and stay informed. You can join drought observation and reporting discussions by attending those MTC meetings that I mentioned. You can sign up on the drought webpage and be in attendance of those. Those are really good ways to stay informed of what's going on currently with drought in the state. You can initiate a local LDIG in partnership with representatives of the Cooperative Extension or County Emergency Management. As I mentioned, the only currently active group is the Pima LDIG. So there are opportunities there. You can stay informed by joining the ADWR Drought Program email distribution lists, where we share meeting information, monthly and quarterly drought status report updates, and where we would also share out the Arizona Drought Preparedness Annual Report each year. Last slide, please. So thank you. My contact information is on the screen, and I'll also put Miss Maggie Martins in the chat, who again is our drought coordinator and is really going to be your best contact for any questions on this. But I'm happy to answer any questions right now, and definitely put some links in the chat for those websites that I mentioned where you can stay informed and up to date on what's going on with drought in our state. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Lainey. Do we have any questions from either the public or the council?
No, sir.
Okay. I have one. Is there anything, you talked about the local drought impact groups. Is there anything structurally or statutorily or anything like that, or just institutionally, that would keep the GUAC from basically acting as that if we found it necessary here in the county?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would imagine that they would be treated as two separate entities, since the GUAC is statutory and the LDIGs is more of a, community-led, local kind of meeting. But that's something that I could dig into a little more for you on the specifics, and would love to, have you and Maggie and I meet to discuss if you were interested in starting the LDIG. My understanding is that historically they were really meant to be in partnership with the county level emergency management folks. So in PEMA, the PEMA LDIG, that is who convenes those meetings and keeps, kind of oversees them. But if that was something you were interested in, we could definitely meet and talk through that a bit more, and I could get some more information for you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, members of the council, this is Natalie Mast. The only thing I would say there kind of on the logistical side is that if those weren't rolled into GUAC meetings, that any drought type meetings that you all attended where there was a quorum of members present, we would have to provide public notice for that to make sure we were.
Okay. That makes sense.
Thank you, Natalie.
Okay, anything? Okay, Natalie, do you want to give us the director's report?
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council. Again, this is Natalie Mast. I'm the director of the active management areas here at ADWR. And I have just a couple updates for the council today. First thing I'll cover is staffing. You've already heard from Colin today. Previously, the supply and demand team was kind of a shared collaborative thing between AMAs and statewide planning. With Colin very recently accepting the statewide planning manager position, we are moving that supply and demand team fully under statewide planning, so they'll report through Colin. AMA, me personally, and AMA staff will continue collaborating closely with that team, providing data, providing additional context based on our knowledge of the active management areas and that type of thing, but we are really excited to share that workload a little bit more broadly and have that transition. I think it makes good sense. Colin is also responsible for Lainey and her team, which includes community water systems, drought and conservation, and stakeholder outreach functions. Also on the AMA side, we are going to be doing a little bit of shuffling of staff in the upcoming months here. Unfortunately, we are losing Michelle C. Benali, who has been our AMA programs manager for the last several years. We're really excited about her next journey, but definitely disappointed to be seeing her go. So we will provide updates about kind of what that transition will look like as we finalize those and get new people on in the future. I also wanted to cover a little bit on the Governor's Water Policy Council. The council in December did submit recommendations to the governor regarding potential updates to the Assured Water Supply Program and also to rural groundwater management regulations. The council staff here at ADWR put together a really nice report for the progress that council made over the last year. So I would really recommend people find that report on ADWR's website, and you can kind of see all of the details of what those recommendations were in that report. The last thing I'll note today is that are we still in the first week? Yeah, sorry, I've lost track of my days here. This is the first week of legislative session. And what we are seeing in the legislative session this year is that there are a lot of water bills, particularly groundwater. So there are a lot of things that ADWR is going to be tracking at the legislature this year. Definitely commenting and providing recommendations on all of those moving pieces. So I would just encourage folks, the members of the council, to kind of keep an eye for those potential updates at the legislature throughout the year. And that's all I have. So with that, I'll hand it back to the council.
Okay, any questions from the council or the public or Natalie? Okay, that's, how are we doing? Wow. Okay, anything, I mean, that you missed, anything that the council or the public, you know, questions from some of the other presentations? And,
I just like to make one statement here.
uh-oh, are you gonna complain about the Dallas?
In half an hour. You know, I was gonna say, there's a lot of, with this drought situation, there's a lot of people looking for assistance, farmers, ranchers, and so forth. And if there's, or they can't maybe get the kind of assistance that they need from the drought from Arizona Department of Water Resources, they mentioned the best alternative is the U.S. Department of Agricultural Farm Services Agency. They really stay on top of drought problems and what the farmers and ranchers need and what they can do to help them during this period of time.
Yeah,
There's
for
a lot of programs they can sign into, a lot of monetary support they can get.
and that's what I was thinking when they mentioned there on the drought impact groups that they expect either emergency management or extension to be involved in that. And yeah, for anybody, extension, the extension service is kind of your gateway into those, you know, a lot of those programs.
If anybody wanted to contact the Farm Service Agency, it's programmed, our area is programmed out of the Wilcox Farm Services Agency in Wilcox.
So, and they do, and particularly if you're, any irrigators, yeah, if you're trying to stretch your water, they've got, I mean, just information plus cost share for equipment and everything else that is out there in different, I don't try to keep up with the USDA programs because they change all the time, but those other people make the big money by keeping up with it.
I think one of the big projects they seem to steer into is the same thing in the Department of Water Resources, is water, how they can assist with the program, you know, the different people that's in ranch and farm, how they can assist them with the water situation, water shortage, different programs that they can do to develop water for you at that time.
Yeah. Okay,
I got some.
oh, okay. We'll wait on there because the council takes priority here over you, Jim. So we got to take it, and you get it next. Joe.
Thank you. Yes, I spent some time looking at the fifth management plan. I didn't realize how it takes a lot of time. I spent 5 hours actually, give or take, going through it. It's great. It was good, a lot of good links, and then certainly the links to what the wells are being tested and everything that we were talking about. Certainly, I did look on page 56. We probably want to remove that because it does make, and we were talking about in the beginning, it still makes mention of Colorado River in this area. We have no linkage to that. I know Nogales sold their rights 20 years ago. So it's still mentioning that we're part of Colorado River, which I don't think we're wrong. Also mentioning about, because we're talking about turf, and again, I didn't mention that about Palo Duro has been gone for 10 years, Rio Rico for 8, and Keno shut down about 4 years, but it does make mention of them as far as being a turf man or being utilized for a guy, and that's page 61. This is the principal in me, sorry.
No,
Cool guy. And then for future, because I know everything that we were talking about, you get to page 7 or chapter 7 is implementation, compliance, and support. And by 2025, January 1st, all these mentions of, be it cattle, be it the mines, be it the golf courses, be it anybody that's using wells and waters, there's going to be monitoring audits and everything to that effect. But it certainly, as a board, we probably should know who is going to receive those letters. City of Nogales, their compliance, everything to that effect. I know that's a year away, but certainly that's going to be coming down. So we certainly, as a board, would certainly like to know how those letters are going out, who's it going out to? And certainly then the following, I'll give you that right there, so I could just pass that, everything that's following on that, as far as the plan modification procedures, everything to the whole plan talks about. And that's going to be requirements starting January 1st, 2025. So certainly as a board, I would certainly hope that we would be appraised to that upcoming, what's going on.
And, okay, so, so what you'd like, Joe, probably at the next meeting would be,
Or in the, yeah, it doesn't even have to be the next meeting, but how this is going to lay out for by the time we hit January of next year.
next year. Yeah, I mean,
And that's a lot. I mean, that really is going to be a lot.
so was that you, Natalie, wanted to?
Yes, it was. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
yeah, go
members
ahead.
of the council. So the fifth management plan for the Santa Cruz AMA was adopted in 2022. We did, back then, I know that was a while ago now, provide some presentations to the council at that time. That plan has been formally adopted at this point, so it would take a pretty extensive process to make any changes to that. We don't have an easy ability, I should say, to make edits to that document at this time. So we have a pretty high threshold for actually making changes to that document. However, at a future meeting of the GUAC, we would definitely be more than happy to provide an overview of the changes that are coming as compared to the fourth management plan that will be coming, that will become effective on January 1st, 2025, like you said.
Okay, and you know, that would be good, because I know you've done that before, is, you know, what are the changes from the, you know, preceding plans, just to give us all an update. Yeah, I agree. A lot of those things are sort of boilerplate language in there, like the Colorado River. I know on withdrawals here, at least in ag, we've been running pretty much under the second management plan this whole time, which we're pretty happy with it. So yeah, because particularly the changes, because I mean, we do kind of assume that, you know, everything's rolling along like it was, and we do things the same way. So any of the changes would be good. And I understand Joel's thing is there's a lot of extra verbiage in there that we don't need. But yeah, an update would be great. An update would be great, particularly on the changes. And Jim, before I forget you.
Yes, I like what I heard today. I think that the board here, their biggest tool is the money that they have saved up and the ability to monitor wells. And as Alejandro said, with USGS, monitor the flows. But I think it's very key that you guys monitor what's coming into the AMA and what's going out. Because as you take golf courses out of service, somebody else may claim that water. I mean, if you don't know what's coming in and what's going out, there's going to be some water there. Same thing with the treatment plants in Mexico that have stuff coming in. And so you need the surface water monitored, those USGS things, they need to be kind of located where water is coming into the AMA or going out. Anyway, so you have the ability, that's your ability, is not to control what's happening in Mexico or the climate, but to have a good handle on what you can control, which is stuff inside the AMA. But you need to know what's outside. Anyway, that was it.
What do you think of just keeping everything here and not letting Tucson? There's the whole purpose of this AMA, was to keep the water from Tucson.
Water balance, but I don't know what's going to the Tucson AMA or what's coming in from Mexico. You know, somewhere you've got to have that, and it's going to be affected by drought. And it's going to be affected by a lot of things. So what for your water balance right now, what is coming in and what's going out?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, do you have that?
And you know, that pops up every year, but, did you look at it? But I know they do that, you know, because every year we've got our
Yeah.
input and our outflow.
Well, that was the hydrology department from the DWR. And, but I don't know how it's going on right now. The hydrology department used to have the information of the income of the water coming in and the water going out and how the balance was here. I don't know exactly how the department is dealing with that right now. I know in Nelson that he used to be a long time player in the AMA and in the hydrology and doing all the models and all the things. I believe he's retiring really soon. I don't know what's going to happen, who's going to keep track of that, and if the department is going to continue to keep track of those things or not. So I don't know. I have a couple of questions, if I may. One is the adjudication. What's going on with the adjudication? Mark needs to have a sense of how many acre feet of water he's going to use in the farm, the 900,000 acre feet he claims. So he needs to know that. And I don't know, it's been going on for 40 years. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's probably, I was young. We were all young. We were all young when we first got involved in that adjudication. And it's, you know, what can I say? It fizzled. I mean, it fizzled what we were hoping for from the court. So it's still working its way through the court, the Colorado stream. The Little Colorado's kind of been wrapped up, is my understanding.
That's why I asked the question, to see somebody from the department could give us a brief overview of where are we with the adjudication. If anything is going to happen here, I doubt it.
Yeah.
At least to have a sense of where we are with that, because that has an implication. My second part of the question, I think I hear Natalie mention changes in the assured water supply. Well, that's really important to me, because that really has an impact in how you manage your water in the AMAs. So what changes they're looking at in the assured water supply?
Yeah.
I know that the department was working on adopting rules for the assured water supply in the AMA that was stopped 15 years ago or something like that, because the governor decided no more rules.
Right.
So I don't know where that is, how the department is dealing with that. Because I don't know, you know, at Tubac, there's a designation of assured water supply, I believe. And we have a designation. We need to know, because the renewal of those designations is gonna have an impact on what the rules are gonna be here. So those are my questions. I don't know if the department in the future could put some update on what's going on with that.
And you know what, yeah, those would be two good things to look at, is any of the changes. Again, like I said, we've sort of been thinking, yeah, the assured water supply rules are just going along the way they always have. But, you know, an update on that. And like Alejandro said, on the adjudication, it kind of disappeared out of here. We tried to get something adjudicated, it didn't work. And I think we're probably the last basin that's ever going to be consulted or get anything worked out in the Gila River adjudication. But yeah, just to see where that's going and see if the rest of the state has made huge strides and nobody needs to worry about anything anymore.
That adjudication process, I think, is why we continue to be dragged into the Colorado River.
Probably because
that river goes and collects.
Yeah, because we're
Okay,
we're a tributary,
right.
maybe every 300 years or something like that. We get
Yeah.
tributary.
The great 500-year flood.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody was navigating that.
So, yeah, and, but you're probably right. You're probably right. That's because it's all, yeah, it's all in there. So, but yeah, those would be a couple things, I guess, to, I mean, everything dragged to a halt when DWR kind of ran out of funding and then COVID came and everything, but yeah, I mean, back on, just the information we're going to need here to be able to fight amongst ourselves about the water. So that would be great. And I keep looking at you like, you're supposed to do all this. Okay. I don't know whether we could be watching the screen.
Not really making notes, you doodling.
I'm
Say
sure.
Reverend Mike Mark to another.
But, okay, if there's nothing else, I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, been motion seconded, all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned, and I've got 11:32.
Something I wanted to ask, I think it's okay, what are we looking at in the future as far as meetings with DWR here in this area? Is it going to continue on the ground, coming down here with?
Yes, yeah. Unless for some reason there's some issues. We'll be.
Yeah, I think it's so much nicer that you guys, when we look at each
Way better.
6:30.
It makes it more interactive as well.
Yeah.
Anticipation be for the
Stops too.
quarterly, or I know it's been a little sad as to when those.
Can't say for sure right now.
Yeah, which is why a lot of times at the end of meetings, you say our next one's gonna be, but I knew it was, no, it's gonna be in the.
Yeah.
Like everyone's.
Sometimes we're like,
No. I know we always have a August, September.